So we'll call to order this meeting of the West Concord Advisory Committee, October 1st. And we can do roll call. So I'm here, Anna Feldwig. Allison,
I'm here, Allison Ailey.
Linda Ferrari,
Here.
Barbara Morris,
Here.
and Lindsay Wolf.
Here.
And we can start off with public comment. Okay, we'll have public comment at the end too, if we need it. All right, so first item should be quick. Have people had a chance to review the minutes from 9/3? Okay, I have too. Has everyone had a chance?
I must say I have not. It's been a little bit of a crazy week. I apologize.
Okay, so Elizabeth, do we vote to approve with one missing or do we wait till next week?
So long as you have a quorum of members to vote, you can approve minutes.
Okay, I think we do. Okay, so I approve them. Lindsay?
Yes, I also approve them.
Okay, Allison?
So actually, somebody needs to move to approve the minutes as written, and somebody seconds, and then you all vote.
Okay, I move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, and then I vote yes. Lindsay,
I vote yes.
Barbara. Barbara wasn't at the meeting, right?
I was not at the meeting, but I entered the minutes. So yes, I approve. Yes.
Okay. And we don't, am I missing someone or we don't have enough? I guess we don't have 5 to approve. Right?
I think I can approve the
Oh, you
minutes.
can
even though-
vote. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I vote to approve them.
Okay. There, we got through that. All right. So those are approved and those will, so Barbara will forward them back to Heather. Okay. Next is Phil Griffith, Chair of the Concord Recreation Committee. Phil, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to talk to you this evening about a project that the Recreation Commission will be taking on next summer at Rideout Park. We did an evaluation of the courts, the tennis courts and basketball courts at both Rideout and Emerson Park over the past few months, and determined that the ones with the greatest need for repair are at Rideout Park. So we are planning to do a total resurfacing of the basketball and tennis courts at Rideout next summer, fall, depending on, there's a few variables in it, but it won't be before late summer, early fall next year. And then we will plan to go and do the courts at Emerson 2 years later. So we have looked at all of them and decided that's the one, they're the ones that are in the greatest need. So we'll start there and then move over to the field, the ones at Emerson in 2 years. The project is funded through a couple of different sources. We have some town funds. We have some funds from the Recreation Revolving Fund, and we are seeking some CPA funds. I'll give you a little more detail on the details of that in a minute. There's really 2 major issues that I wanted to share with you. We're making an assumption that everybody's in support of us making those courts better than they are now. They're in dire need of repair. All the folks that are using them and playing them have let us know that they're in need of repair, and we agree. That we hired some consultants who said, yes, you definitely need to do a complete resurfacing of these. 2 major issues are the type of materials we use and what we do with those courts when they are resurfaced. So I just wanted to share with you what we're thinking about doing, give you a little background on the project. Then you can advise us as we move into some more sort of public comment period, things to think about, anything that you want to know about the projects. Believe it or not, this is a fairly expensive hobby. When they've gotten to the state that they're in and you have to do a complete resurfacing. The way that we would like to do it actually costs about a little over $1.1 million, believe it or not. It's an expensive hobby, resurfacing courts. So there are two issues here that we have. One of them is, as I said, is the materials that we will use and the funding for it. And the second one is what we'll do with the courts. That's the really interesting one. We'll get there at the end because that's the fun conversation. But just to give you a little bit of background, there's two ways that you can do these courts. You can use standard sort of routine asphalt, which people use. It has a life of about anywhere from 5 to 10 years. It requires some ongoing maintenance as you do it. It needs to be replaced again about every 10 years. The sort of standard these days that most people would advise you to use is to use something called post-tension concrete, which will have a life of anywhere from 25 to 30 years. It's more expensive, but it does not require ongoing maintenance nearly as much. And over time, when you count how much it costs you to redo it every 10 years rather than 30 years, it'll save money in the long run. I'm happy to share with you all the calculations in detail if you're interested. But suffice it to say that the more expensive upfront post-tension concrete with a life of 30 years makes a lot more sense than asphalt that lasts 5 to 10 years and has to be redone and maintained as we go along. So what the budget that we have identified based on what our consultants have told us we should anticipate the costs being, we have about $240,000 of town funding from a couple of sources. One was from town meeting in 2019 and some ARPA funding that is dedicated to ride out courts. We have identified about $400,000 from the recreation revolving fund to finish the project. That amount of money would be enough to do the courts with the standard asphalt, the 5 to 10 year model. We have asked for the difference, about $497,000 from the CPC committee as a funding source to fund the difference so that we can do the post-tension concrete. From our perspective on the Recreation Commission, if for some reason the CPC decides that they can't fund that, we would go ahead and do the project with asphalt and figure out what we're going to do again in 5 to 10 years, because the courts need to be done. Some of this funding is identified and has to be spent now and will be lost if we don't spend it. So we have, as a commission, have said we would go ahead and fund the amount of money it would take to do the asphalt, and we're asking the CPC to fund the post-tension concrete. So that application is in now. I assume you're all familiar with the CPC funding process. It would get evaluated this fall and approved at the town meeting next year, and then put into the project next fall. So that's where we stand with sort of the overall budget of the project. The really interesting question is when you've got resurfaced courts. The basketball courts will be resurfaced as they are, 2 basketball courts. We don't intend to do anything different there. But those of you who spend any time in Rideout Park will know that there's an awful lot of pickleball playing going on those tennis courts. What we have there currently is 3 tennis courts that are also lined for pickleball courts, 2 on either side. So there could be 6 temporary pickleball courts that require players to come out and set up the nets and break down the nets every time they do it, etc. I think everyone's fairly familiar with the dynamic that's going on there. If you spend any time in Rideout Court, you're aware of what's going on. There's an awful lot of interest in pickleball. There is nowhere else in town to play pickleball except on those courts at Rideout Park. There are occasionally some indoor in the winter available at the Hunt Recreation Center, but it's primarily folks who want to play pickleball in Concord. That's where they're going, and there's a heavy use.
Phil, I'm sorry. Phil, is that because Rideout is the only place for people to play pickleball because that's the only court in Concord that are lined, have the pickleball lines?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the only place that is set up for pickleball.
Thank you.
So what we are going to propose, we're hosting a public meeting later this month on the 21st at the Harvey Wheeler Center, the Council on Aging there, because we expect there'll be quite a few people coming in. We are going to put out some options to receive some comment on, and that is for repurposing some of the courts that are there. So we're going to go out to public comment with 3 options. One option being redoing it exactly as it is now. 3 tennis courts with 6 pickleball courts lined up there and temporary nets that people can come and use and take down when they're done. That's one of the options. Just continue as it is the same. Another option is that we could resurface all of those things, redesign what is going on there, and put 8 dedicated pickleball courts. No tennis courts, just dedicated pickleball courts. You can't do it the other way. If you dedicate pickleball courts, it's a little difficult to have a temporary tennis court because of the way the nets work and how you have to set the things up. So the alternative would be dedicated. You could fit 8 pickleball courts on there. Or the third option is some hybrid somewhere in the middle. You could take 2 of the tennis courts and convert them into, we're trying to get the exact measurements. I believe it's 6 pickleball courts. You can fit in 2 tennis courts. It may be 4. We've got to just refine that with our consultants and keep 1 tennis court. So basically what we're going to ask the public to provide comment to us on is which of those directions would people like to see? As is, where you can have 3 tennis courts and temporary pickleball courts, complete shift over to all pickleball courts, put in 8 pickleball courts, or some combination in the middle, 4 to 6 pickleball courts and 1 tennis court. I believe it's 6. I just don't want, we have to get the exact engineering from the consultant as to whether it's 4 or 6 and how much space we have, et cetera. So we are planning to go out to hear from the public on that. And we expect a very lively conversation because I know there are a lot of people who are very interested in pickleball who want it. And there are still, by my observation, some people who play tennis there, a lot less than pickleball. Now, whether that's because there are less tennis players or because there are always pickleball players there, that's the kind of thing that we want to hear from people. A couple other things to keep in mind. There are several other locations in town to play tennis. There is nowhere else to play pickleball. Pickleball is growing rapidly and rising. It's a game that has a lot of popularity. There's a lot of folks, a lot of folks who are older than the tennis players that are picking up pickleball. So it appeals to some of the older residents of Concord. And we have heard from the many pickleball players there any number of proposals about what they would like to see happen there. But we're interested in hearing from folks. We also want to hear from, abutters and neighbors around the park, what their concerns are. We have not, I'll be honest with you, we have not heard a lot of issues from any of the butters about pickleball players. On a national level, you often hear that there are noise complaints about pickleball because of the particular sound it makes. At the Recreation Commission, we haven't heard that from abutters. We haven't heard from them about any noise issues or parking issues or anything like that. There's the crowds seem to be they're enjoying themselves when they're playing pickleball. We haven't heard of any major issues. But we anticipate there will be some tennis players who will say we want to keep the tennis courts there. There'll be a lot of pickleball players who want to say, we want this facility. There's lots of us. There's nowhere else for us to go. We're doing all this stuff on our own, and breaking it down every day and doing this. We think the town should provide us an opportunity. And maybe the answer lies somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to tip my hand as to where I think the right answers go, but we're going to have a public comment on that. What we'll do is after that public comment, go back to the Recreation Commission, sort of take what we hear and make a recommendation, and then go out to public bid to get the project done. So that in a nutshell is what it is. It's pretty straightforward. We're looking for CPC funds to do it the right way. We'll do it an adequate job of it, but in the long run will cost more if we don't get the CPC funds. I'm fairly hopeful that we will. I think it fits with the purpose of the CPC and the budget. So I think it makes sense. And we anticipate a pretty lively discussion on the 21st, October 21st, from lots of people. We will put out lots of information about it, about the various options and when the meeting is, and go from there. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
When you say there's no other place to pickleball, so we have to use Rideout, is the town kind of looking more holistically at how to utilize the spaces that we have for tennis and pickleball so that people understand that in the future, this might not be the only place to pickleball?
Well, we are not at the moment. The situation, as I understand, again, I'm fairly new in town. Looking at it, as we understand, when you go to Emerson, those courts get an awful lot of use for tennis, and there's not currently any pickleball over there, where there's very limited use of the tennis courts at Rideout and a lot more use for pickleball. We're not, so at this point, we don't have any, there's no inkling of any suggestions that we would sort of do the same thing over at Emerson and do a hybrid and change anything over there. We anticipate that would stay as tennis courts. And we're not thinking of doing any other change over there at the moment. I mean, I suppose people could comment on that and provide us input on that. But it seems to me that given sort of the current distribution of uses and the demand, that's something we don't want to take on right now. We're interested in being responsive to the huge demand for a new type of recreational opportunity, and hoping that we can continue to serve potentially serve both of them in Rideout, but an improved opportunity for people to play pickleball.
Mm.
Bill, can I ask, are you going to know the answer about whether it will be 4 or 6 pickleball courts before the hearing?
Yes, yeah, I'm literally waiting for an engineering report right now, so we'll know before the 24th. We'll post. I'm pretty sure it's 6. I just can't give you 100% because they had to run some. It's about
Because
distance between the courts
think
and that
that
kind of
if
stuff.
it's 6, because they only have 6 now, right? Because it's
Correct.
2 per tennis court. I think that if it's 6, is a really good argument to be made to retain a tennis court at Rideout, and they'll still have their 6 courts.
Yeah.
And I also think it would give a model for people to explore in 2 years when you're doing the Emerson courts, whether they want pickleball over there. Because it's hard to know why it's only in West Concord, but West Concord seems to be way more tolerant of things, changes and whatever, including like pickleball. Whereas the reputation of that side of town is they're not so tolerant. I could imagine that if there were anyone proposing to play pickleball there, it might not fly. So that just could be a way down
Yeah.
to broach it.
That's why I was asking, like, what is the broader town plan to have more hybrid locations? Because it seems a little strange to me that it's only focused on Rideout, and that, you know, we have to be the ones here to serve all the pickleball needs of the entire town of Concord. Because I'm a tennis player and I live, you know, as you know, Phil, we're neighbors, and I, you know, try to take my daughter down there. I can show up at the meeting and voice my comments, but, you know, it just would be helpful to know if, you know, again, are we putting all the eggs in this one basket for pickleball? And it sounds like right now we are. So that's just information for people to know, I guess, when they're coming to the meeting.
Yeah, I don't know the history as to why there was a decision made to initially put temporary pickleball courts at Rideout as opposed to anywhere else. That happened before I was here. And it does get a lot of use. So there's a high demand for it. There's no question. Which does say, should we be looking more broadly? But I totally understand that. But I think we're looking at it as we're going to acknowledge what is going on in Rideout now, find a good solution, and use that as a model to think about for other places in the future. So we will be putting out lots of notices through lists we have of pickleball players and tennis players and all that sort of thing, and making sure that all the abutters are aware of what the plan is and what the schedule is. But the public meeting will be on the 21st at 6:30 at the Harvey Wheeler Center.
What time is the planning board meeting on that day, Elizabeth? Not that it's not a huge issue, but
Planning board meetings start on, at 7.
at 7, okay.
I'm sorry, Phil, what
Presumably
time
that-
did you say this one starts? The pickleball tennis?
6:30.
6:30. Okay.
There'll be probably other ways to have public comment, though, I imagine.
Yes, we haven't figured that, but there are. Yes, I don't know the administrative details of how that will work out, but I'm sure we can get written comment and various things like that as well.
Will it be a hybrid meeting, like Zoom and
I believe so. Yes, I will confirm. I think most of them are these days, so I will confirm that.
Phil, is there a place if someone is like, hey, what are all the locations in Concord that I can play tennis? Is that easy to find? I just realized I've never sought out that information, but do you provide that as the Recreation Commission? And the
I
hours that you can play,
I
like for
don't know that
example,
we do, because I'm not sure that they're all, no, that's a good idea. We should do that, and it's probably a piece of information that would be helpful to have at the meeting so that people know. Um,
yeah, just
uh,
because, like for example, the tennis courts at the high school, are
Yes.
those ever, usable, open for the public use?
Yeah.
Because again, it would help me to know, okay, when I'm looking, this isn't my only, even though it's walkable for
Yeah.
me at Rideout, I can easily
Yeah.
have
No, that's
3
a
other
good,
locations.
that's a really good data point to have as well, to talk about. There are many other opportunities to play, or there, I assume there are. I know there are some. I don't know how many there are. So we will find out that piece of information.
Thank you.
Phil, if you guys were to go with the tension concrete option, how difficult is it to revise what the lines look like that are drawn on there? So that's like the one that lasts for like 25 years, right?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
understanding is like pickleball's been around for a long time, but it's gotten really popular in the last few years. So like in the off chance that it's a fad that goes away, are we going to be stuck with pickleball courts for 25 years?
I don't believe so. I mean, you're talking the concrete surface itself. There's some cost to it, but you're essentially talking about painting on top of the underground material. It's not insignificant, but I don't believe it's a huge cost. I will confirm that. But you're not. It's not. You don't put down the stuff, and it's not like the courts are in there. There are, there's stanchions for the nets and that sort of thing that you would have to repurpose and do that stuff. So it wouldn't be insignificant, but it's not going to be, the same cost as doing the whole project again.
Got it. Thanks.
I will find out about that.
And Phil, if they were to go for the, two dedicated pickleball courts and 1 tennis court, is the tension concrete the base for both pickleball and
Yes,
tennis?
yeah,
Or is
the
there some
entire
other
surface
choice?
area of the tennis courts would be the post-tension concrete. So that's the goal. That's what we've asked for the funding for, so that we don't have to go back there every 5 to 10 years and go back and, those black lines that appear on there in between, is that we don't have to, hopefully we don't have to do any of that. What the consultants are telling us is that you get 5 to 10 years with the asphalt, and you get 25 to 30 with the post-tension concrete.
And it's less likely to crack because
Less
is that
likely
what
to
you?
crack. It's a much better
Yeah.
material. And if you look at what other towns around here are doing, everyone is doing post-tension concrete. If you have a choice, that's what you do. That's the state of the art these days. No one is doing the asphalt unless they're completely financially constrained to do it. It's not recommended to do the asphalt.
And it's better for basketball as well.
Yes, we would probably not, we may not do it. That's another sort of ripple that we may have in there, depending on funding and when the actual costs come down. We could end up doing the tennis courts one way and the basketball courts another way if we needed to. But that really depends on what sort of final bids come in. The thing will be structured, figuring out what funding that we have and how we do it.
I see. Okay.
But they believe it or not, it may not seem like, but the amount of use does make a difference even on post-tension concrete. And the basketball courts don't get nearly as much use as the tennis courts. So that would certainly be an option to just do them with the regular asphalt.
Is there a difference in, I guess, injuries or like wear and tear on human bodies on playing on these surfaces?
Not that I'm aware of. I've never heard that. We haven't asked that question specifically, but we certainly could.
Well, I was just wondering, because I know that, when they redid the fields at the high school and they were all excited to go with turf, and now all you hear about are the injuries and the turf burns and all of those things. So I just wondered, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't believe there is a difference. I will confirm that. They are both going to be rock hard surfaces. It's not quite
Right.
the same issue as you have between grass and artificial turf. But so I don't believe it's an issue, but I will ask that question just to make sure we can get that answer for you. Because people may ask that same question at the meeting. So this is very helpful, and we can get all these answers for our public meeting.
And are you looking for, like, is it with this, or Anna or Elizabeth or someone, is this something that we would, as a committee, we would take a position or write a letter, or just encourage participation at the public meeting? How does that?
You can do all
Either?
three if you wish.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
I certainly think it might be helpful if you agree to write a letter to the CPC committee about getting the funding for the post-tension concrete, whatever we decide to
Oh,
do
yeah.
with the courts, because that over time will save the town quite a bit of money. And I can find the analysis we did of that exact number and what the consultants estimate it will save us over time, and I can send that on to you if that's helpful. But I think that would certainly be helpful. You might find it difficult amongst yourselves to come to a consensus about a letter on the on the choices for the courts. I don't know. I don't know what folks on the committee think.
Anybody else have anything they want to ask? Okay, well, thank you, Phil.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
I hope
you.
to see some of you on the 21st, and thank you for your questions are all very helpful. We'll make sure that we can incorporate sort of responses to that into the presentation we'll give at the meeting so people can get the facts that they're interested in upfront.
Excellent. Okay, thanks a
All right.
lot. You're welcome
Yeah,
to
thank
stay
you all
or
very much.
whatever you want.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
Phil.
got to go back and get my kid off the television. So thank you very much.
Okay, so next is Sue Beck from the West Concord Cultural District Committee. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, thank you. I'll try to make this quick. We are working with the Green Thumbs to try to put a sculpture at Junction Park. The West Concord Cultural District Committee would like to have the sculpture as a means of drawing people to the district, of welcoming people to the district. We like the Junction Park location because you can see it from the street, you can see it from the sidewalk. People coming on the bike trail would pass it. We envision something that represents West Concord's history. And we envision a sort of a tall kinetic type thing with a small footprint. We don't want people to be able to climb on it. We don't want kids to be able to reach it. So those are our safety concerns. But we discovered that working with the New England Sculptors Association, they, for a fee of $750, will help you design your needs, what you're looking for, and will contact artists all over the country if you want, or just in Massachusetts if you want. But whatever we decide, they will contact the artists. The artists will give us things to look at, and we can choose which artists we want to work with. And we can rent a sculpture for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. So our idea was that we would try this out. We would rent a sculpture. And if we love it, maybe, we can buy it over time. I was told that it would be at least $10,000 to purchase a sculpture, and that's kind of like almost our whole budget. So we would have to purchase it over time. But you can also then turn around and rent another one if you want. Some towns do, through the New England Sculptors Association, do a sculpture walk every year, a different one. And there's a sculpture park in Burlington that was done through the New England Sculptors Association. So if you're interested, you can go look at that. The Green Thumbs are interested in having a sculpture because they want to acknowledge that Junction Park was a collaborative effort between the businesses in the district, the town, the DPW, everybody. And they also have a spot where they can't grow any grass, so they want to put a sculpture on it. So that particular spot happens to coincide with what we want. And as you walk across the rail trail, so you cross the street and you come into the park, off to the left, the grass to the left, there's a round bare patch there, which is where they think that would be a good place for a sculpture. So I've contacted the DPW. We have to get permission from them to say if that would be an okay place. We'd have to trim back one tree a little bit to do something with any height. What else? So we'd really like to give this a shot. We haven't done sculpture yet. We've painted just about every surface we can paint in West Concord. We're running out of walls. Our decal project on the sidewalks has been very successful. We've gotten a lot of feedback on that. Originally, we got permission from the owner of the Concord Tea Cakes Plaza to put a sculpture there. But the town got nervous about using private property, and we did too after a while when we started thinking about insurance and things like that. The idea of doing it on somebody's private property started to feel a little more iffy. So we're in very preliminary stages at this point. We haven't talked to the New England Sculptors Association again because we're waiting to see if we actually have a location. But this is the one, I think that Junction Park is really a very good bet for us. The other was the island at the foot of Commonwealth, where Commonwealth turns to go to Route 2. But there are plans for that. That island might change. And so we didn't want to get involved with that.
You're talking about Kenny Down Square or no?
Yeah.
The other end, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, the other end. So Mimi said that my first task was to talk to Green Thumbs. They're on board. So my second task is to talk to you guys and make sure that you're on board with the idea of trying to put a sculpture somewhere, hopefully at Junction Park, to catch the eye, to encourage people to sit. There are already benches there so people could sit and look at it. And if it's a kinetic sculpture of some type, and we're picturing, something with representations of the industry of West Concord, pails and gears and train wheels and things like that. Mill type symbolism or whatever. So there's already benches there, and hopefully it would invite people to say, hey, this looks like an interesting place. Let's go check it out. Because that is
it
the
is a
goal.
little bit of
Our charge is to bring people to the district.
Right. Yeah, and it is a little bit of a confusing space, right? Because there's the rail trail, and then there's the benches, and then aren't there the very large like trash bins there?
There
in
are
that
trash
space?
bins there. Yes.
Yeah, is that the
They're
space
down a
you
little
mean?
bit farther down.
A little bit farther down, I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely it lacks a focal point. I agree with
It
you.
does, and this would be a nice focal point for that. And and again, I think if it draws people to say, "Oh, look at that! What's this about? Wow, West Concord's an interesting place." This year we've put up plaques that explain the murals, and if those are successful, we're hoping to expand that and put up plaques that talk about the history of some of the buildings. So we could definitely put a plaque there, encouraging people to, hey, check this out. Here's, and you can it has those codes, so you can go and get more information. The committee has already done a really good job of putting the history of West Concord on the website, so that we could tie that into this sculpture. So, and it would probably also be seen, hopefully it would be seen by people passing on the train, because that's another one of our goals. I'd really like to have something that people see, even if they don't get off the train, and say, whoa, what's that? And it's kind of draw their interest to West Concord a little bit. So
Elizabeth?
I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do here is ask you guys if you think this is an okay idea. And then we can go ahead and talk to the DPW. And after we know we have a site, our next step would be to go to the New England Sculptors Association and find out, okay, what parameters do you need from us? And then to work on that. Green Thumbs wants to be included in that discussion. And if you want to be included in it too, I guess we're happy to invite and include you too. And then we go from there.
Elizabeth?
And we'd like this to be part of our budget for this coming year. And for this year, we're thinking, we were told we could probably rent it from anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. So there you go.
So, Anna, my first, I guess my question to Sue is that you have at this point not spoken to anybody at Concord Public Works.
No, I have sent them the proposal, and I've
Okay.
sent them a picture. And I'm just waiting to
Okay.
hear back from them and meet with them. And if they don't like that particular spot, we'll look for another one.
Okay.
But hopefully they will
So
like it.
I would probably bug them again, because the tricky part with Junction Village, with Junction Park is that there's different areas for
I
stormwater
know.
drainage um, and how things get plowed, and so I
Yes.
would definitely check with them about that location, because I think
Yes, and I sent them all the pictures and I had to say that Green Thumbs, they're really gung ho. And I mean, because they wanted an
y-
arch. She sent me pictures of something that would
yeah,
probably cost about
yeah,
$20,000. I said, because I don't
that's
think that's gonna
where
fly.
that's kind of where
So we're reining her in.
I'm trying to caution the excitement,
Yeah.
and to just say I would reach out to Concord. Who at Concord Public Works did you try to reach out to?
I have emails from uh
It would either likely be Steve Duker, the town engineer, or Aaron McCloskey, who's the highway and ground superintendent.
yes, it was Aaron and somebody else.
Eric Shaw, the assistant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they put me in touch with the right people, so I think I'm okay there. I mean, as I say, this is very preliminary, so
Well,
but I'm
but
sort
a
of
lot
just
of times things get legs with excitement. So I just,
no, it's very preliminary. And if this
Okay.
site doesn't work, we'll try to find another one. But I just wanted you guys to know this is what we're going ahead with. If you have any ideas, please let me know. Because we'd really like to give this a shot.
Barbara.
I'm curious, you say there's a 750 to get the sculptures group to work on a design with you. And then
Mhm.
maybe, would you say 3 to 5,000 to potentially rent a sculpture?
Yes, that goes to the sculptor.
Yes, but where does your budget come from? Are you looking for
Oh,
CPC?
no, our budget comes from the Mass Cultural Council.
Okay,
We get $15,000 a year,
okay, good to
and we
know.
have to spend it all,
Yeah, or it goes away.
or it goes away.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
all righty.
I would think it would need to be a rather tall, thin sculpture, wouldn't it? Just for the space, and especially if you want it to be seen from both the road and the train.
Yeah, that's what we're envisioning, something tall and
Yeah.
thin.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's
it's
better
a
because
lovely
it does have
idea.
a small footprint. We don't want anything
Yeah.
that, takes up a huge amount of space.
But that's out of scale with the park there. That would be my only question, is that it's, what are the criteria that, it says something about the history of West Concord, that it's, within an appropriate scale for the environment that it's in. Just, I guess maybe this committee might want to weigh in on what some of those
Oh,
criteria
yeah, I
might
mean, we're
be.
not gonna do anything goofy.
Well,
And
I mean,
we're
I
certainly
just,
gonna
we don't
we're
want to
going
make
to
any
have
not that you would, but it's just helpful to maybe
yeah,
identify what the criteria are, so that we can all know that we're not going to get something that isn't what we're looking for.
yes, I assure you that we will do it in good taste.
Mhm.
And again,
No,
I mean, this is
it
all
sounds
very,
fun.
very, very preliminary. So,
Yeah, well, good luck with it. And does anyone have any other thoughts that Sue can take back? Okay. Well, thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
well, great.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And we'll get back to you when we have more information.
Okay. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thanks a lot.
Okay. Next is Jennifer Schumann.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. We're also very much in preliminary world, but my husband Wilson and I are working on the Guitar Museum of New England. Am I able to share something with you, a quick
Sure.
video?
Yeah.
So I don't,
So,
people sometimes
not
ask,
not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
No, so, the town had to lock down all of our,
Oh.
Zoom accounts because of Zoom
Oh.
bombing. So I need to promote you as a co-host and, if you want to share, so. You're all set, Jen.
Okay. Great. So I just thought it might be helpful, to just give you a little flavor for what you will find when the museum is live. So this is from a pop-up exhibit that we did at the Umbrella Arts Center before they closed down for their renovations. And it's really just to give you an idea of sort of the style. I turned the sound off. You don't need to hear the sound. But sort of the types of exhibits that you might be seeing when we are built and live, which will be in the future. We already have a collection of over 135 instruments from around the world. The focus is much more on boutique guitars, luthier guitars, meaning hand-built instruments. It's not going to be like a big store type of vibe. It's really artisanal instruments. And the concept behind it, again, this is a pop-up exhibit that we did. The concept for the museum itself is you would have, these permanent exhibits, but we would have a rotating series of speakers and what we're calling living room concerts, where you would have 50 or 60 people in the audience, and professional musicians would come, the instruments would come out from behind the glass, and you'd be able to hear what they sound like and talk to either the makers or folks who have played these instruments to learn the history and how they're built. It's a really exciting concept. We've gotten a lot of really positive response. And we've been working hard behind the scenes since we acquired the property at the end of last year to do all of our sort of pre-work. We had to do level 1 and 2 environmental testing on the site because we know at one point there was a gas station there. We have found there is a tank at the front of the property that seems like it has not leaked, which is great. So sort of doing that preparatory work, very early stage architectural work, mostly looking at how to make a building large enough to house what we need, sufficient parking, and still meet all the requirements of the town. Elizabeth has been super helpful in that regard. Thank you to you and your team. The biggest challenge for us right now, frankly, is predicting costs of the build. I'm sure everyone's aware that there have been lots of sort of random tariffs placed on various things that are important to go into a building. And it's made it very challenging for us to get our budget pinned down. So we've sort of slowed our roll just a little bit, waiting for some clarity around that. But meanwhile, we're really focusing on how we can be a good neighbor in West Concord. I think folks have probably noticed that we immediately went in and cleaned up the property, put in nice fresh gravel in front to brighten the place up. Last year we decorated with holiday lights, and we've been an eager partner to any of the town, neighborhood festivities like Discover West Concord Day and the holiday stroll and things like that. So I'm gonna stop this now. It's just sort of to give you a sense of the caliber of the exhibits that will be coming when we get there. I wanted to talk to this group about two things. One of which is because it's going to be a little bit of time between now and when the building's up and we're in. We're actively looking for possible locations for a couple of temporary or pop-up exhibits that we could do between now and when the museum's open. That's really hard to find anywhere in Concord. There isn't a lot of public space available. So I wanted to kind of run that by you guys, see if anyone had ideas. And then the second little bit of ironic challenge is we're trying to make the best use we can of that outdoor space. The building is not what the museum's going to be, and that building is going to come down and we'll be putting up a new building. So ironically, because we aren't an operating business right now, I've been told it's really challenging to try to get permits to do anything special or different, like an outdoor activity. So I'd like to get some advice, or maybe just talk about how we can navigate so that we can be a great partner for things like Discover West Concord Day, the holiday stroll, etc. We're very happy to have our friends and neighbors use the property, but I understand that there are some requirements around that. I'm not sure if that's just in non-festival time or all times. But we've run into a couple of challenges trying, for example, Discover West Concord Day. Sadly, we were told we can't do anything there because we are not an operating business. So I think we just have to apply for some sort of special permit or something in the future, but I'd like to work towards that, particularly for the holiday stroll and for Spring into West Concord. So just kind of letting you know what we're up to, and wanted to meet you and say hello, and happy to answer questions you might have. But again, we're really in the very early stages of things.
Jennifer, is it possible to give a little bit of your background and what inspired you and your husband to do this?
Oh,
I
sure.
just I don't know anything about you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm actually not the guitar fanatic. That's my husband Wilson. I think maybe people might know me because I published Discover Concord magazine. And for a while I was the chair of the Economic Vitality Committee in town, and pretty active with the 250. So I love this town, and I think West Concord in particular is a really vibrant and fun neighborhood. I've always loved the just real diversity of little interesting shops and restaurants, and the culture there. I think someone else said this earlier. It seems to be a place where new ideas and innovation are welcome. And through my work with Discover Concord magazine, I've gotten to know lots and lots of people around town. And my husband Wilson has worked in the guitar world for many years. He works mostly with small handcrafted instrument builders. The exhibit that I showed you earlier, Steve Klein is a artisan guitar builder in Sonoma, California. And he built Joni Mitchell's acoustic guitar, for example, and many other instruments for well-known people. But he'll typically make one or two of a particular instrument. And there are dozens of makers like that Wilson, my husband, works with. So he's the curator of the collection, and he's the one who will run the exhibits and the educational program. My background is more in business development, understanding finance, marketing, etc. So this is a dream we've had for a very long time. And it's always just sort of been in the background. And then about a year and a half ago, when Meg told me that she was going to be retiring, she had a new leaf in the building at 74 Commonwealth. And when she let me know that she was going to be retiring, Wilson and I talked, and we said, I wonder if the owners would be willing to sell us the property. And so we went through a process there, and we were able to acquire the property. We just think it's the absolute perfect place for a cultural museum. It's a great, what Sue was saying earlier, just trying to pull people in and show them how fantastic West Concord is. It's right on the bike trail. It's right next to the train. It's easy to get to from Route 2 or in town. And we really feel like it's a perfect kind of cultural welcoming point into West Concord. We're also very friendly with the Conservatory of Music. Kate Yoder's great. We
Just
talked to
about to
her.
ask you about
Oh,
that and the
yeah.
connection.
Yeah. No, we
Yeah.
talked to her even before we acquired the property. And
Mm.
our whole mantra, anyone who does know me, during COVID, I was one of the key folks that led Concord Together to make sure that our small businesses didn't go out of business during COVID. I'm just a huge fan of supporting local and supporting my friends and neighbors. So, for example, we have no intention to have a cafe in the restaurant, in the museum, because there's tea cakes, there's Saltbox, there's Deborah's, there's Woods Hill, there's all kinds of great places. There's an Anna's that just opened down the street. We are not going to offer music lessons because the Conservatory of Music does that. We've actually talked to them about great ideas of how we can cross-pollinate each other's programs. And, for example, I'm not speaking for Kate, but one of the ideas we talked about is, okay, you've got this great trio coming in and they're going to play a concert at the conservatory. Do a master class at the museum in the afternoon to talk about the instruments that people will see in the concert that night. Then people can take a break, they can go have dinner in the neighborhood, do a little shopping, and then go see a
Great.
concert.
I love
So,
that.
we really are very excited to be in West Concord. We're just really trying to wrap our heads around the big leap of putting the building in place in an environment where it's a little tricky to pin down costs right now. So,
Well, thank you for that background. Is that a source for pop-ups? You were mentioning, is CCM uh, an area that you
um,
could have a pop-up?
I'm not sure. I mean, right now they're in a church building, so I don't know. We'd love to find a spot in West Concord, because we want people to be associating the museum with West Concord. So we are, starting to ask around, but anyone who has ideas, we're really open to them. Please reach out. So,
How much space do you need for a pop-up?
oh, probably for a pop-up, maybe 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you envisioning the new building being closer to the road and then the parking behind the building? Or sort of what are you, or you
So
trying to maintain that open space in the front, or what are you thinking?
So actually the bylaws require that we bring the building up to the curb. That's actually to be compliant with the requirements. So the parking would go behind the building and the building would come up towards the curb. Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone has asked you about the trees, the mature trees in the front and on the side, but that's something that we've talked about before. So did you have any thoughts about those?
Well, like everyone on this Zoom, I'm a very deep nature lover. My home is on Monument Street, and we do a lot of work on the trees on our property, and trees are very important to both Wilson and I. I know the two gorgeous maple trees that are on the side by the railroad. We've been working really hard to make sure we can protect those. Unfortunately, with the requirement to come up to the curb, I don't see a way of saving the beautiful tree that's in that front, but
Front one?
definitely the two gorgeous trees on the side are a priority. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Well, someone pointed out to me that the tree in the front may be near the end of its life. So if that's true, it'd make everybody feel
Yeah.
better about it.
We've actually had an arborist look at it and they've said that as well.
You did such a nice job decorating it, Jennifer, for
I
last
know, I feel
holiday. It
bad
was
now.
so lovely.
I think we're gonna do that again this holiday season though. It just brightens the place up and makes it really pretty. So
Yeah. Well, Krista Collins is on the line. She's all the tree person. Maybe we can plant another tree, Krista.
Hi, yeah, Krista Collins, 55 Highland Street. I speak for the trees. I love this idea so much. And I love how it complements CCM's work and Porch Fest. And I feel like West Concord could really become just like kind of a music hub. I really love this. And one idea when you were asking about pop-up locations, when Concord Youth Theater moved into the church, I felt like at the time they made a lot of statements about how this was going to be like a really public space and very community facing. And I live on Highland Street, and I feel like we haven't really seen that. So I wonder if that, if they could be approached about a location for a pop-up
That's a
and
great idea.
make them walk the walk on that. I talked to Jennifer's husband last winter, I think, when the open house was at the, at the new location for the Guitar Museum. And he mentioned the same concern about having to build right out to the sidewalk and get rid of the tree. Um, maybe it's a mature tree. It's also the only mature tree we have in the commercial stretch of Commonwealth. And actually, I went back and looked at the design guidelines for West Concord after that discussion, and it does give WCAC and the planning board discretion to waive that requirement to come to the sidewalk if there's an opportunity to create a little like a pocket park or a little area, for gathering. So I would really, strongly suggest going back and looking at those guidelines to see if there is an opportunity to kind of create a little outdoor courtyard or something like that that does preserve that tree, because
Mhm.
it really, it's going to take another 40 years to grow another mature tree like that. And
So the other factor here is parking.
Mm.
And already we only have a third of an acre total for that lot. And the requirements are for every 250 square feet, we have to have one parking space in order to be compliant. So we're trying to balance, we're already not going to be able to make the parking requirements completely. And it's not just the tree, it's also the root ball of the tree. It comes way out. And there are two beautiful mature trees on the right line of the property. And I feel like it's got to kind of be one or the other. And I really hear you. I really do. I have spent a ridiculous amount of money in saving beautiful trees on my property. There's a hawthorn tree in the front that is one of just a handful that are not sick, that I, take very good care of. I totally hear you. Um, you know, I can't promise anything about that. I mean, we have to be able to build a building that will both function and meet town requirements, but
Yeah, absolutely understand that. And that's why I'm raising it now in hopes that if there's, if the planning board would be willing to kind of consider waiving some parking requirements, because we've got the commuter rail, there's all that public parking there. And
Mhm.
I was worried that you guys would get so far along with your planning and spend a lot on architectural design. And so I want to throw this out there now for consideration
Sure.
and exploring alternatives. I think.
I don't know. I mean, Elizabeth is on the call. I don't know if she can comment on how challenging that would be. I mean,
So I am not gonna comment on a project that hasn't been designed or submitted. But I can tell you that, parking waivers are through the zoning board of appeals, and there's been, there's been quite a few projects in West Concord. And the board, and along with the planning board, consistently have the same process where, yes, they could request relief from parking, and go through and have a transportation or parking consultant assist them with doing the study and the research and submit the information. And so, there is a process that
yeah.
we've already talked about. So,
Yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Elizabeth. I'm trying to convey to the group that to try to fit a building and parking on a third of an acre and be in compliance with as many of the town requirements as possible, because, we don't want to delay things even more trying to ask for multiple exemptions. And even just if you look at the reality of such a small space, if you move a building one way, to, I mean, the root ball of that front tree takes literally about a fifth of the lot. Um, and then you would bump into the other two beautiful trees on the right-hand line. So I hear you, but you know, we have to try to balance all of those things together.
Barbara? You're on mute.
It is possible to plant new trees that can grow rather quickly. And maybe another way to approach it is just to hope that whatever budget they are eventually able to work with, that it includes landscaping that will have some good sized trees, not, 10-foot trees. Pardon me, while my 6-month-old cat climbs over me and sings in my ear. That might be another way to go. And I'm curious, the other two trees that you refer to, do you know what they are?
I believe they're maple trees.
But do you know what kind of maple?
I do not.
Okay, because everyone's taking down their Norway maples because they're invasive at this point. And it may be that those trees will not survive either.
Sorry, what is the one that we're talking about? The large one in the front is a maple?
No,
Jennifer?
that is not a maple tree.
What is that
Talk
one?
about the two on the side.
It's a honey.
Right, I'm sorry, just clarifying, the one in the front, the large mature one is what variety, what species?
It's a honey
Honey
locust.
Honey locust. Okay, thank you, Krista / Jeff. I mean, it does make such a big impression in the town, and I hear you, Jennifer, how difficult it is to balance all these priorities. I think, Jeff, maybe you were going to say something, though. Don't want to interrupt.
Yes. Thanks. Just a reaction as a former member of the West Concord Advisory Committee. I think that the committee's power is in taking the West Concord master plan, the design guidelines, and helping shape development proposals down to the level of things like this building footprint and how a new building is going to fit into the streetscape and into the larger vision for the village. And I think working with the planning board and the ZBA, figuring out how to help new business owners, new concepts like this come to life while fitting in to the community. So I don't think it's a good place to start to say, well, the bylaw says we have to build up to the sidewalk, so we're going to cut down the tree. Or we have this calculation for parking, so we need to cut down the tree. But to start with the concept of we've wanted a walkable human scale streetscape, including trees, which we're lacking, and how do we leverage the design guidelines, the bylaws, variances, et cetera, to help the development concept while meeting these other goals. If anybody listened into the various proposals for 13B Commonwealth Avenue, the lot in front of Neshoba Brook Bakery, which is still a grassy lot, that was like 5 different concepts. I mean, that's not a good plan. That's kind of like too many reviews, or that wasn't necessarily a great process, but that developer was willing to work with the advisory committee, incorporate feedback, and say, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let's try this. So I'd encourage the advisory committee to reflect on the objectives, the goals, the master plan for the village, and work with the proponents here to figure out how their concept best fits in with West Concord versus being told what's going to happen and sort of saying, oh, that I guess that's what we're going to get.
I do wonder about that public parking that, we keep revisiting that space that used to be so sought after when people commuted more. But now it's just a large, open, unused parking lot. Is there something that we could do there? Because it's so close.
Yeah, it's actually a big piece of why we were interested in that location, because we maybe naively thought that logically there is plenty of parking nearby. I think we're probably getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. We don't even really have concept plans to be showing people yet. My objective tonight was to say hi and kind of tell you a little bit about our vision. And, the reason we wanted to meet you is absolutely when we have something to look at, I'd like to sit down and talk with you about it. You know, I don't really know what to say right now because we are way too early in the process to um, really have anything to respond to at this point. So I do hear you. I share your concerns about West Concord being a great and exciting place to be. I want you to understand there isn't a developer behind this building. There is a couple that lives here behind this building. There's a very big difference. We don't have a giant financial motive behind this. We are doing this as a giving back to community program. We are bringing our personal, everything into this. So there isn't like some giant profit motive behind what we're trying to do. We're trying to do something nice for the neighborhood. And of course, being a good neighbor means listening. So I understand and I hear you. But we're probably way too soon to be able to have much of a substantial conversation about this just yet.
Well, it was very good though to hear what you were thinking, because it sounds like it fits right in with what people want for this town. And now you know the concerns that we have, and
Mhm.
maybe we really can, work something out with the parking in particular.
Well, that would
Because
make
we've
a
had nothing but,
difference. Yeah.
we've had nothing but problems with parking. It's like one of the big issues.
Yeah.
Um,
I will tell
so
you, Porch Fest was so much fun. And I don't know if any of you were there when Saltbox was celebrating their 10-year anniversary. And it was just so rewarding to stand there and hear live music played, see people laughing and having a great time. It was a meeting place for people to get together. And that's absolutely in line with the vision of what we're trying to bring to the neighborhood. So hopefully that's just a preview of good things to come.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you made it.
Yeah.
And we got to hear about it. Does
Absolutely.
anyone else have questions or things that anybody's? Okay.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Very
You're
interesting,
welcome.
exciting.
You're welcome. All right, I'll touch back base again when we've got more to talk about, but thanks for having me and I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna jump off and go make dinner for my family now.
Okay.
All right, see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so let's see. So we've got about 20 minutes left, and the next thing is an update on 1440 Main Street. John was going to give us this update and he couldn't make it today, but I can, and I think he wants to give a more detailed update, but I can just tell you that their group did present a letter to the select board, and the select board recommended that they submit a CPC application next year, because there would be more information at that time about the value of the property that's under discussion, which the town has until March of 2028 to decide whether or not to purchase. So he can fill us in on what their plans are between now and next fall when that comes around. But that's the bottom line. And then, does anyone have any comments or questions about that? Okay. The next.
I guess I should have spoken before you went on to that
I'm
topic.
sorry,
I'm
go
still
ahead.
like, I guess absorbing what Jeff Collins said in the public comment
Oh.
here. I want to, I guess, support what he was saying, and I think that that's a really important objective and power that we have, a power, but influence that we have in this committee, that we can shape the way that, I know she's not a developer, but that new things coming into the community do happen. So I think it's great that we have this conversation with Jennifer before plans were, inked, and it was, so far down the pathway. So I guess I would encourage our committee to just continue to, try to shape that, try to find ways that, we can preserve the character and feel of the town, which does include the natural, world that is such a prominent tree in our kind of the scape, whatever, the landscape of Commonwealth Avenue. It's the only one that we have. So I would just like to, support what Jeff said, and hope that we can continue to have that conversation and that we don't just stop the conversation, have them go away and present plans that, that we continue to try to partner with Jennifer and the town appropriately.
Krista?
Oh, thanks. This is regarding 1440, but thanks, Linda. Uh, because I've been part of John's group here on the street that's kind of coordinating and working on the pocket park idea. And I was just going to add that the only other thing I think that we talked about is that the select board suggested that there would probably be a need for some private fundraising to supplement any public funds that go into the project. So that's something that we're going to be thinking about as a group over the next year or so. And in some ways, and this is just my personal feeling, is that probably it's probably good that they wanted to hold off on the CPC application for a year, because I think it'd be better to go into that knowing that there were some that the neighborhood had some skin in the game. So that was the only other piece.
Okay, anybody else on that? Okay. Elizabeth, is the parking issue at the Guitar Museum, is that something we could bring up when we meet with the planning board on the 21st? Or is that something that you will take back? Or, I mean, how?
Until there's an actual, even a conceptual plan or a design, it's not productive to have this conversation go any further. It really isn't. I don't know what level of relief they're talking about. I don't know the square footage of the building. Whether there's going to be retail on the first floor and the museum on the second floor. That's what I heard last time, but so it's yeah, until we know what the project is, it's not productive to have a conversation about parking.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next thing, which I think might take some time. So I wanted to start discussing, and I hope, Elizabeth, you could sort of get us going, this concept of us being proponents of a comprehensive signage program for Concord. So Elizabeth, can you start the conversation about what types of things we could do, how we could be useful in this way?
So
sorry,
so I wasn't prepared to be the person to have this conversation. So
okay.
Let me just get my thoughts together for a second. So this committee is not the only committee that's had conversations about signage. The West Concord Cultural District, it was when Marcia was here, so I'm going to say, and I might not have been here, I can't remember, but so West Concord Cultural District went through and even hired a consultant to help and try and develop signage, and went all the way to having conceptual signage developed for West Concord, and it ended up dying because there was no consensus. The Transportation Advisory Committee had an extensive conversation about signage and all of the different signs, and how some signs don't even seem to be where they should be, and some signs that just repeat things, and some signs that are obsolete, and some signs where there's no signage. And from a pedestrian and mobility. The town doesn't even have a consistent use of the blue P for parking, which is worldwide. And then, Anna's previous conversation, brought up about just different type of wayfinding. And so the economic vitality manager is currently doing a small project for the wayfinding that's just on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which was supposed to be part of that project. You can see the wayfinding signage in Acton. So I think the conversation about a comprehensive signage evaluation, inventory, town conversation with all of these different entities, including, the select board has to be involved. Concord, Public Works has to be involved. Probably Economic Vitality Committee, Tourism, Historic Districts Commission, possibly historical. There's so many groups that signage is a part of the fabric and the conversation. So a comprehensive signage program, it's just even doing the inventory, the analysis, recommendations. You're talking a significant amount of money to get a consultant to do that. And give me 1 second.
Because I think your idea was just that we've raised the issue to the select board.
Right, but I think just the West Concord Advisory Committee, there's more power in numbers. So I think that if this committee, let me say, develops an idea scope, this is what we're thinking. And one member goes and talks to the Transportation Advisory Committee and gets them on board. One member goes to the West Concord Cultural District and the Concord Center Cultural District and the Historical Commission and gets them on board. And all of these groups are on board with the idea to approach the select board to get them on board, so that everybody starts on the same page. And then, then the select board can help figure out, okay, how does this type of project move through? Because I can tell you that I did reach out to Lexington, and it was through their economic development division. So they did a joint signage project with Bedford and Arlington. That project was funded through a regional economic development organization grant. It was $150,000 split between the 3 towns. So it's not cheap. And they said they working with the same contractor to build additional signs in Lexington Center. And they also applied for a destination development grant. So, there appears to be different grants out there. And, Mimi may be able to assist in researching those grants. So, I can.
So our job would sort of be to start the conversation with all the different committees that would ultimately be involved.
I think so, but so again, I think this is probably a good topic to bring up with the planning board.
Yeah.
And this also, because ultimately, and this once again gets back to what is the charge of the West Concord Advisory Committee, and has the committee evolved into something different? So I think having the conversation with the, on the 21st with the planning board about, what do you want your work program to be? There's not as many, the original purpose was for the planning board to have basically a sounding board for development applications. It's not the same anymore. And what ultimately happens with MCI Concord, that's going to be somewhat out of, it's not going to be a regular site plan or special permit application. It's so yeah, I think getting everybody on the same page first, and then seeing if there are grant opportunities out there so that you have that information as well, and then approaching the select board would be how I would approach it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is an important issue. How do the other people on the committee feel about this? Is this something that you would be interested in working on? Barbara? I see you first.
No, it's because I'm taking notes.
Oh.
Guess I would look at what are the other priorities and things that, we made a whole list of 9 or 10 things 2 months ago, month ago, that we should look and see how this fits in with that, because it seems to be that this is a long-term kind of project and would involve efforts on a lot of us to really reach out to a lot of other committees, and we should at least know what the other committees are thinking. They may be already 6 steps ahead of us on this. And I think it's worth doing that. I'm not clear that this is necessarily where I would want us to put most of our effort right now.
Thank you. And Linda, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think I think we would need to get our arms around how complex, this problem is, and, how much time would it require, and what impact would it have, on our community. And until we have that information, I think it's hard to assess it versus the other potential areas where we could focus our efforts.
Okay. And Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that what Barbara and Linda said are exactly my thoughts. I think it would be useful to maybe go back to that list that we brainstormed and have that conversation again, because I feel like we quickly started moving down the path towards the signage project, which I think is worthwhile, but it's relative to all the other things we could be doing.
Okay. And Allison, what do you think?
I agree with everything that's been said, and I do agree that it's a big problem. I mean, we've heard it from a lot of different people in a lot of different ways that it is a big problem. But solving it is not going to be easy, and it feels pretty big and pretty amorphous, and it would take us away from lots of other things. I'm not recalling what's on that list.
Okay, so it sounds like then, can I send that list around to all of us after this meeting through Elizabeth and Heather? And we can all take a look at it before the 21st, when we have the meeting with the planning board. So I guess we won't really have our ducks lined up fully, but at least we'll be more aware of things that we talked about. Yeah.
So
is
sorry,
that-
and at the meeting with the planning board on the 21st, is that the meeting where we're supposed to be, or where one of the objectives is to clarify our role or not?
I think so.
Is
I
that-
think, well, it's one of the meetings that we have like twice a year with the planning board. And we were gonna be in person if we could be. And yeah, I was kind of hoping to sort of have some ideas about what we could work on. But it sounds like we're not there yet, so maybe we can at least have a fresh list in our heads. Is that, Elizabeth, is that okay if we don't have sort of a proposal of like, here's what we'd like to work on this year? Is that okay if we don't have it?
I think that's perfectly fine, and you know, the list that gets sent out can also be shared with the planning board, and you can have a conversation with the planning board, you know, about that list.
Because last year, we were sort of in the same position, and we decided that we were gonna go through the master plan, and that kind of gave us focus. Okay, so that's what I'll do. I'll dig up the notes from that note, or from that meeting, send them all around, and we can all have reviewed that before the 21st.
But
Okay,
so what I am gonna ask it for the meeting on the 21st, yes, usually the meeting is to talk with the planning board about, you know, what is, you know, West Concord Advisory Committee, you know, doing, what do they, you know, what do they want to do, what do they, you know, what's happening, and but if the committee wants to specifically have a conversation with the planning board about the charge, then you should let me know that, because then it just factors in when I prepare the agenda memo, you know, it'll be, you know, a conversation about the charge, and then, you know, also when you know, send out the list of you know, potential, you know, projects that the committee wants to take on.
well, do you think it's important to talk about the charge before we figure out what we're doing, or they could happen in the opposite direction? Because, I mean, the charge from before was to support the planning committee. Right? I mean, that was kind of the most general wording in it.
Yeah, to review development
Oh.
applications and provide input, which, you know, is pretty basic.
Yeah.
But
Um,
you know, but if you're, you know, thinking about, you know, comprehensive signage, you know, that's not something, you know, that the planning board, you know, that's not a, you know, development project, or you know, I can't think of other ideas right
And
now,
what-
but
okay.
Last time, Elizabeth, were you saying that depending on, I guess, how we were potentially evolving that charge, that could lead us to potentially become like a, what do you want to say, like a committee that's not just an advisory committee, that is a committee unto its own? I thought you were saying something along those lines at one
no,
meeting.
I mean, it's, you'd never become a jurisdictional committee there, you know. There's,
I
you know,
mean,
there's
I
no,
misheard. If you could say
Yeah.
what you were saying again to us, that would be
so
helpful.
no,
Thank
you
you.
wouldn't be a jurisdictional committee. There's no purpose, you know, for that. You have, you know, by statute, you know, planning board, board of appeals,
Yeah.
historic districts commission, those. But, you know, if if this committee and the planning board agree that, things in West Concord are, evolving, far beyond, this very narrow focus that the planning board, however many decades ago, crafted this charge as a subcommittee to the planning board or an advisory committee to the planning board. If both groups felt that things in West Concord are changing and evolving, and this committee can become an advisory committee, I'm going to say more under the select board, and be advising if help advising the Transportation Advisory Committee or the West Concord Cultural District or the EVC or all the different MCI advisory board, or when 2229 Main Street gets rolling, or there's things happening, and there's lots of different boards and committees that Recreation Committee came to you tonight. It's so which again, in the scope of the charge, whether they resurface pickleball courts or not, really, from the planning board's perspective, that's not something that the planning board would be involved in, and neither would West Concord Advisory Committee. So,
Or
but
the sculpture, right?
right, it's that's not something that the planning board would ever be involved in and weigh in. But so I think things are changing.
Okay.
So who would to make that decision, like, oh, it seems like things are evolving, so maybe they should be a committee to the select board. Like, who would make that call?
So it would be this committee and the planning board having that conversation, and then bringing in, having a talk with the select board liaison. For the planning board, it's Wendy Rivoli, and for this committee, it's Paul Bohm. So, having that conversation, and then presenting something to the select board.
So it sounds like
Thank you.
that's what we should focus on the 21st.
That's one thing you can focus on. Yeah. That's why, there's so many things going on. It's
So many things, yeah. Okay,
Well, can I just ask one more question? How should this committee, Elizabeth, think about, because you referenced earlier MCI, that we're not really like that, that's a whole separate committee. I think maybe I just put myself in this. I'm not always sure like how we're gonna be involved with that ongoing. Should we, as we're thinking about the list that Anna's, gonna send us, is our involvement in that fairly going to be minimal, would you say, going forward? Just so I can sort of place that whole MCI thing in sort of context of how it affects us going forward. Like, how should I think about that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure how that whole thing is going to evolve.
Because I asked because that's such a big thing for
Yeah.
West Concord, obviously. And so if we do end up, shifting to become more of a planning board, a select board advisory committee, then when you ask me about signage, like that then becomes all sort of connected potentially with that whole
Yep.
effort.
Yep.
So I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get it all in my head.
Yeah, I think as the MCI advisory board moves forward, there really isn't gonna be, oh, here's the top 4, important boards and committees that need to be involved. I think it's gonna be, here's the vision, here's what we're gonna move forward with zoning, and everybody should be involved. It's
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
be,
the list of stakeholders for MCI that they sent, like the most recent thing it's long, it's really long.
it's, right, so,
Mm,
so I don't think there is any any board or committee who should think they have to be invited to participate. I think every board and committee should be participating
mm,
in some fashion. Whether you get a formal request, like I'm fairly confident the MCI advisory board will make a formal request of the planning board to be involved in the drafting of the zoning or reviewing the zoning, because that's just what they
I
do.
do.
But as far as the crafting and drafting of zoning and the conversation, every single board and committee should be involved. I mean, except maybe a celebrations committee, but so I don't
Celebrate,
think that
tear it down.
so I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't think that probably really answered your question, but
Yeah, I mean, it did. I mean, I think, yeah.
I think everybody should be inserting themselves into that process and that conversation in some manner.
And it could disproportionately impact us because, it's just happening here. So that is helpful. Okay.
So I'm just mindful of the time. I want to say
Yep.
one other thing, which is that after the last meeting, I did connect with Mimi Graney about the Bruce Freeman rail trail signage and what was going to be included in that signage. And we set up a time to meet that I think if anyone else wants to join for that meeting, they should. And so right now, Linda and I are going to meet with Mimi on the 7th of October, which is next Tuesday, from 2:30 to 3:30 at Tea Cakes to.
And I actually can no longer do that, Anna. I needed to tell
Oh,
you
you
that
can't?
because I
Oh,
now
okay.
have a client meeting and away from here. So I'm sorry about
Let me
that.
try to find another time then. And
Okay.
I'll send it again through Heather, through Elizabeth, and anyone
Okay.
who can make that
Sorry about that.
would be nice. Yeah, because okay, that was the only other thing I wanted to make sure I
So,
said. And
so Anna, if you're just coordinating with Linda on something, you don't need to send that through me and Heather.
oh, well, it's not Linda. It's not just Linda. It could
Oh.
be anybody on the group.
Oh, okay.
I only managed to talk to Linda about it,
Oh,
and
okay.
she said she could make it, and I knew Allison couldn't, and I wanted to ask the rest of the group. So I do actually want it to everybody.
Okay. So, as far as, because we're just basically talking about open meeting law violations. So you can send an email to the committee. I would just ask, include, myself, you can start including Christine and Heather as a CC, include the committee members as a blind CC, saying, hey, I'm trying to schedule this, who's available? And people can reply, back to you, and when they reply all, it'll be back to staff and you. And then that's fine. Then you never have to worry about an open meeting law violation. So yeah, so don't think you have to send everything through us. It's if you're sending out documents for comments or something for the packet, it's easier if that comes through us, and because then we send out one email with the whole packet and the agenda and all of that. But for coordinating and that type of thing, don't worry about. That's the easiest, but that's how we send everybody notices. And so when you get an email from Heather, it's she's on it, I'm CC'd, you are all blind CC'd, and the title, when you open the email, it's good morning, West Concord Advisory Committee members. So you all know that even though you can't see everybody, that's, we're sending it to all of you. And so that's how we do it with all boards and committees.
Okay, so that is the end of the agenda, except for public comment, but I don't think we have anybody in the public left, so. So let's adjourn at 9:11.